As early as Greek antiquity and propagated in various epochs, anthropocentrism, as it had become known, influenced humans' relationship with their environment and is regarded as a crucial factor for the present ecological crisis. Anthropocentrism believes that humans are the most significant species on the planet, and nature has a value because it serves their interests. In this worldview, the value of an entity or object is based on or is determined by its usefulness, which serves human purposes. Anthropocentrism, which exalts humans as the center of everything and makes them the measure of all things, implies that only those actions that have humans as beneficiaries are deemed worthwhile or significant. As all value is human, and that ethics would therefore have human persons as its principal or even sole focus, something invaluable only insofar as it serves the needs of humans.
So some of the water, the water that comes out from dewatering, which is the removal of the water so you can access the ore body, is under some pretty stringent requirements from the Division of Water Resources with the state of Nevada. They mandate that that water needs to, number one, go back into the aquifer. You re-inject it back from where it came. Or if you can't do that, number two, you can substitute it for a beneficial use.
Depending on the year, it can range from about 15 to 20% of the water we pump is actually used at the mine. Some of that's actually used in irrigation at the ranches, irrigation pivots, and then a smaller fraction is actually used to produce the billions of dollars of gold wealth that comes out of the gold mines themselves. Water use, you have to be very careful how you define what you mean by use, because most of what we pump ends up right back in the ground.
In association with an expansion of Carlin operations, Environmental Review identified the potential for impact to some springs and seeps in the Maggie Creek watershed. From that, the company, in concert with the Bureau of Land Management, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Nevada Department of Wildlife, Trout Unlimited, and a neighboring ranch, Maggie Creek Ranch, formed the Maggie Creek Watershed Restoration Project. That effort began in 1993, and here more than two decades later, we have tremendous success in restoration at a watershed scale. What we collectively have been able to do is recover and improve degraded riparian habitats and establish connectivity for Lahontan cutthroat trout.
Some environmental groups would like to see additional regulations that would require more post-mining restoration of pit lakes.
They have to dewater for those very deep pits and so forth. What happens when they're done with the mining, when they're finished mining, there's no reclamation required for the pit, for the open pit. There's some analysis. They have discussions with the state agency, but they're not required to reclaim them, and they'll become lakes afterwards. So we feel like this is something that needs to be addressed. This is an area which was once an area of land that was open to the public, and we think that it should be reclaimed for public use in some way.
While reclamation of pit lakes that would turn them into a public use is not currently required, maintenance of the water quality is part of the closure responsibility of the mining companies.
Aristotle posited that there is a scale of nature or an encompassing chain of being wherein humans, because they are intelligent, were distinguished from and regarded as superior to lower forms, specifically to animals and plants. The so-called great chain of being justifies the anthropocentric view, also known as scala naturae or scale of nature. The great chain of being implies a structure composed of a great number of hierarchical links, from the most basic and foundational elements up to the highest perfection. There is a Christian version of the great chain of being, and it can be found in the medieval synthesis of St. Thomas Aquinas. The hierarchical ladder presented by Aquinas at the peak is a transcendent God, followed by angels, human persons, down to animals, plants, and inanimate entities. In all these different eras, humans are portrayed as the central fact in the universe, while also supporting the exalted view that humans had unlimited powers, potentials, and freedom. In the anthropocentric view, value is anthropogenic. This means that it is up to humans to assign value to things, and something has value if it is valuable to man. Something is valued when it is valued for what it can do for the valuers. Feed them, shelter them, please them, inspire them, transform them.
The expected price movement, as well as the growth of our population and the economy. After this, the cash department places the order with the security plant complex, which in turn procures the materials needed to produce and print the banknotes. When the designs of banknotes are changed, final approval of the President of the Republic is required. From the approved design, a prototype banknote is prepared. The banknote image is then etched on a master die from which printing plates are produced. Meanwhile, ink experts mix the exact colors of the money. With the ink and plates readied, printing begins on special security paper that is composed of 80% cotton and 20% Philippine abaca. This combination gives it a distinctive texture that sets it apart from ordinary paper. The sheets of banknote paper go through offset printing, where 15 to 20 colors of the design are printed at a time. Next, the paper goes through the intaglio printing process, which gives the money its embossed look and feel. Raised ink from intaglio printing requires drying for several days. After this, the banknote sheets are submitted for a series of inspections. The serial numbers are then printed on each banknote, which are again subjected to thorough inspection. The sheets are then cut and packed into bundles of 1,000 pieces each. These are now delivered by the security plant to the currency management group, from where banks exchange or withdraw their currency requirements. From the banks, the banknotes finally find their way into the economy and our wallets. There is one question that is repeatedly asked of the Bangko Sentral. Given our ability to print money, why can't we just print a lot of money? As a matter of policy, prudent central banks such as the Bangko Sentral print only the amount of money projected to be sufficient to promote stable movement of consumer prices conducive to balanced and sustainable economic growth. Printing a lot more money than the economy needs is bad policy, because it will lead to higher consumer prices and lower buying power for the family. This is the bedrock of price stability, the responsibility of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas.
Male humpback whales repeat each other's songs and add to them so they become ever more complex and beautiful, showing off their memory as well as sheer volume. Listening carefully to this song is a female humpback whale. She's here with last year's calf and is ready to conceive another one. He stops singing and follows her. He may sing to her again, but not if he thinks other males are close by. they start to get to know each other. It's an old-fashioned, slow-motion waltz. Such beautiful movement is rarely seen. Dance in the animal world is little understood.
My country is being tested by this hellstorm called Super Typhoon Haiyan, which has been described by experts as the strongest typhoon that has ever made landfall in the course of recorded human history. Up to this hour, we remain uncertain as to the full extent of the devastation. The initial assessments show that Haiyan left a wake of massive devastation that is unprecedented, unthinkable, and horrific, affecting 2/3 of the Philippines, with about 500,000 people now rendered homeless, and with scenes reminiscent of the aftermath of a tsunami, with a vast wasteland of mud and debris and dead bodies. It was just force too powerful, and even to a nation familiar with storms, Super Typhoon Haiyan was nothing we have ever experienced before, or perhaps nothing that any country has ever experienced before. But as real as climate change is, it does not account for all that is wrong in the environment. It is simply one of the myriad human-induced environmental crises with long-term negative consequences for humanity. According to a Filipino environmentalist, Angelina P. Galang, humans, because of their overutilization and exploitation of the Earth's resources, have brought about extinctions of various species, degradation and alteration of ecosystems, flattening of mountains and reclamation of landform, sea, and release of enormous amounts of waste to the atmosphere, hydrosphere, and lithosphere, thus straining their carrying capacity.
Hey Tol, do you have some Celajes? Yes, I have. You want? Yeah, sure. Let's go.
I think there will be a heavy rain tomorrow. The weather is not so good.
Let's hear from the news. Hey, open the TV.
Sure, Daddy.
everyone. Tomorrow, Super Typhoon Ineng will enter the Philippines with a speed of 230 kilometers per hour. People in Luzon should evacuate now based on Pag-asa because this region will be more affected by the Super Typhoon Ineng. Pag-asa said that people here should leave their houses as soon as possible and bring the things that is valuable because this Super Typhoon Ineng will have the great damage.
Oh no! Let's follow the news and evacuate now.
But what about our crops?
Leave it! Our safety is more important than that crops. We can start over again. Mama's right. You should leave now. I'm scared.
Okay, let's go pack our things and go to the evacuation center.
Where are you going?
Didn't you hear the news? We are going to the evacuation center because there will be a super typhoon tomorrow.
What's new? I'm used to typhoon. There's no need to evacuate.
Yes, and I don't want to live in our house because there are a lot of things that I value the most.
They are right. I also don't want to leave our house.
It's your choice. We're only concerned for your safety.
Are you sure you're not coming? We're going now.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's go.
Okay, be safe guys.
As discussed earlier in the so-called Great Chain of Being, the observable crisis that human persons have brought upon their environment and consequently upon themselves comes from a dangerous view which puts human persons at the center of the world and reduces nature as an instrument at their disposal. Galang 2009 situated the impact of anthropocentric view in the interplay of significant factors such as cultural, technological, and political evolution, which enforced attitudes of dominance and self-centeredness. This tendency is revealed in the attitude of dominance and mechanistic outlook, which sees the elements of nature as mere objects of man's consumerist worldview. It is unfortunate that economic prosperity comes at so high a cost, such that one can only tremble at nature's retribution for all this carelessness and greed. Habitat destruction. Anthropogenic interference is evident in the massive habitat destruction, which began during the Spanish and American colonization. The plunder led to discrimination of 50% of Philippine forests to supply raw materials for colonizers' shipbuilding needs, for the spread of agriculture, and for commercial logging. The effects of the destruction of Philippine forests have hit close to home. Soil erosion, which causes landslides and flash floods during the monsoon and typhoon season, has led to the destruction of property and loss of lives.
We are the one working under the sun all day. All we ask for you is to help us.
Destruction of water ecosystems. Now more than ever, fisherfolk who rely on the seas for their livelihood are finding it more difficult to catch fish. They need to go farther out into the seas to catch meals to feed their families. Because destructive human habits and practices have also wreaked havoc on water ecosystems. Overfishing, destruction of coral reefs, and indiscriminate dumping of chemical wastes by factories are among the chief culprits. Global warming. Global atmospheric concentrations of carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide have increased markedly as a result of human activity since 1750 and now far exceed pre-industrial values determined from ice cores spanning many thousands of years. The global increases in carbon dioxide concentration are due primarily to fossil fuels use and land use change, while those of methane and nitrous oxide are primarily due to agriculture. The countries with the highest rate of carbon emission are among the most industrialized in the world, namely China and the United States, Russia, India, and Japan. We think we are the highest entity in this world. We only value the things that will benefit us. But sometimes we don't know that we are slowly destroying our environment because of this too much usage. We are the most intelligent animal in this world, but we are the one who doesn't know how to protect our planet. It's time to wake up, open our eyes, and see what is happening to the world. We, as the highest entity in this universe, should be responsible. We have to take an action for what we did, for what we destroyed. We must first change ourselves before we change the earth.